I'm Janice Edwards. Coming up on Signature Silicon Valley, we are focusing on Silicon Valley Gives. The Silicon Valley Community Foundation is gearing up for its annual event. Then KGO Radio's Brian Copeland joins us to talk about his show, The Waiting Period, and how he battled depression. Entrepreneur, filmmaker, director, and master connector Mark Sackett joins us to talk about the art of active networking. It's a big show. Join us. Coming up next.
This segment is sponsored by Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Silicon Valley Community Foundation advances innovative philanthropic solutions to challenging problems. As the largest community foundation in the world, we engage donors and corporations from Silicon Valley, across the country, and around the globe to make our region and world better for all. Possibilities start here. Learn more at siliconvalleycf.org.
I'm Janice Edwards. Thank you so much for joining me for Signature Silicon Valley. One of the signature events in the Valley each year is the Silicon Valley Community Foundation's Silicon Valley Gives Day. It's an incredible day of philanthropy, and here's more about it. We are talking with Manuel Santamaria, who's the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives and Grant Making for the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Manny, thanks for having us here today. Glad to see you. We're excited because this is the third year for Silicon Valley Gives. But for people who don't know exactly how this works, explain a little bit. Give us a 101.
Sure, absolutely. So SV Give started in 2014, and it's a 24-hour online platform that gains or garners support from donors, nonprofits, and individuals from San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara County, and San Benito counties to give on May 3rd to any nonprofit that is registered through svgives.org.
Yes, that's exciting. How many dollars did you give away last year?
So last year was close to $8 million. We had close to 850 nonprofits registered, and the last 2 years, we've had over 170,000 donors provide matching support and prizes to organizations that have been registered.
So you'll be at a number of locations on May 3rd, some Microsoft locations as well as Safeway. And what happens during that day? Are you encouraging people to give as they're shopping, or what is done?
Absolutely. It's kind of an interesting experience. So for example, if you're at the Microsoft store at Stanford Shopping Center, for example, folks that go into the Microsoft store, we actually have 3 or 4 of our staff with tablets ready to give information to folks that are interested in providing or signing up. For example, as a donor, as an individual, if you have a favorite nonprofit in the area, then you can look it up online. And if it's on there, we encourage you to provide as little as $5, $10 for that organization, or as much as you want. Mm-hmm. It's enrolled, and because we have matching gifts and it's a rolling 24-hour day sponsorship platform, your favorite nonprofit could be eligible for prizes throughout those 24 hours. So $5, $10 could be matched up, with other donors that could provide $1,000 to $10,000.
Wow, that is very exciting.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful initiative, and I love the way that the foundation continues to expand. You've been with the Community Foundation for 17 years now. What have you seen change in terms of the needs?
So I think the needs here in the region, and one of the things that we say about the Community Foundation is we want to meet donors where they are. So some donors, think of community in global terms. So they might provide funding for water issues or housing issues wherever they come from, whether it's international, whether it's national. A lot of folks really focus their energies here in San Mateo and Santa Clara County, which is our footprint. And so the needs of the community have not gone away. I think from the recession in 2008, when it hit the community really hard, up to now, almost 10 years later, we still see the needs for safety net in terms of food, shelter, housing. Transportation is something that we're really working on. There's 18 transportation authorities here in the Bay Area, and as you've seen, traffic has gotten even worse.
Oh, it's incredibly difficult.
So one of the things that we're working on is how do we work on these issues at a regional level, because no one agency, not one foundation can actually solve, for example, the transportation woes that we have here. So by working in conjunction with other nonprofits that are working in the space, we really amplify and expand the reach and solutions that come out by working in the space.
Yes, and so that's one of the reasons that it's great for people to participate with SV Gives,
Yes.
because they'll have an opportunity to really invest where their hearts are in terms of making our region better in that way.
Absolutely, and so if you go on to svgives.org, you can see the agencies that are on the rolls, if you will, and it doesn't matter. I mean, any nonprofit, any 501c3.
And they have to be in one of those counties, not in all of them.
Right, they have to be in one of the 4 counties.
Right.
You know, we also allow organizations that are headquartered outside of the 4 counties of San Francisco, San Mateo, San Benito, and Santa Clara, but if they have significant service in those 4 counties, then they are eligible to enroll in SV Gives.
Yes, well, it is wonderful that this is participating. And when you're there and you're interacting with the people giving, what do you find most exciting about that day?
I think it's just the enthusiasm and also the willingness to think about, what is happening in my community now. And then by just taking this little step and sort of, taking a look at the organizations that you think are most important and that you want to give back, it just causes, at least in our staff when we're outsourced and located in different places, just great conversations about needs, about what the community foundation is doing, what are, some of the solutions that have been worked on, not only by us, but by other funders and cities and municipalities. So it engenders a really good conversation about what's happening in Silicon Valley.
Yes, and a lot is truly happening in Silicon Valley. It's good to see the areas where things are improving, and of course the needs continue to be so great, like you mentioned, transportation, housing, so many others. So I want to thank you for all that you're doing, putting your signature on our valley in a major way, and also providing for SV Gives.
Oh, you're welcome.
If you'd like more information about Silicon Valley Gives, the details are on our screen. Since the age of 18, actor, comedian, radio host, TV host, and author Brian Copeland has been bringing laughs to many. But privately, he suffered from depression for many years. He suffered silently. His show, The Waiting Period, chronicles a 10-day period in his life when he had decided to take his life. He was waiting for a gun. Fortunately, Brian is here with us. The show has inspired others to seek help and to find hope, and we're glad to have you. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you. We've been talking about doing this for
Forever.
a while. I know.
Forever.
Exactly. Well, and this is certainly a great reason to do it. You do so many things, and I love listening to you on the radio
Oh, thank you.
as well. But this particular show, The Waiting Period, is something that's near and dear to your heart, and you also have a cause related to it. We'll talk about the cause in a moment. I gave a capsule of the story, but let's talk a little bit about what was happening during this time period. What led you to the point of feeling suicidal?
It was back in 2008. I had just a series of calamities. I would say it looked like the book of Job. Over a very short period of time, I had a marriage breakup. My grandmother, who raised me, died suddenly, had a stroke and died suddenly. I got into a car accident where a car was totaled. I had the result of that accident, I ended up having spinal cord damage and had to have emergency surgery, or I was going to be quadriplegic. And then after that, I was laid up for 3 months in a neck brace, not knowing if I was going to get mobility or how much mobility I would get back. So during that period of time, I just started to circle the drain. And I had been, I like most depressives can tell you, they suffered from it their entire lives, from childhood, and didn't realize what it was because, there really wasn't a name for it. We didn't talk about depression back then.
Yes. Now, I know when I interviewed you for Not a Genuine Black Man, when that book came out, you had chronicled some of the incidences of racism growing up in San Leandro and other things that were part of what also formed your public persona. You even found the humor in situations to bring light to that to others. But can you share a little bit about what privately, you shared about these incidents that were going on, but what it was like when you were living still with this sense of hopelessness, but people around you didn't necessarily know how serious it was.
Well, that's the thing. People who are depressives, especially people who are suicidally depressed, are the best actors and liars in the world. That's why so many times when you hear of a suicide, there are family members who'll say, I had no idea, or best friends or coworkers, I didn't know. It just came out of the blue because, there's a front. Because, the way that I put it in the play is it's like there's a voice whispering in your ear. And I don't mean like literal hearing voices. That's a whole different mental illness.
Right.
But it's like there's a voice whispering in your ear that's trying to kill you, that's giving you inaccurate information. You're no good. The world will be better off without you. The only way to end this pain is by ending this pain. Those kinds of things. So the way this show came about, you mentioned Not a Genuine Black Man. I touch on depression in that play. And one of the critics, Robert Hurwitz of the Chronicle, wrote that, gee, I wish he would have gone more into what that was like. So I kind of thought about that. That was in 2004. Then 2008, I have this bout. And after I came out of it, I played with the idea of doing something about it. And maybe I could help some people if I talked about it. Right. Then the 15-year-old nephew of a friend of mine laid down on the railroad tracks and committed suicide. Wow. And I thought, okay, I'm going to talk about this because maybe if I can stand up there and in front of strangers and spill my guts, then maybe it'll make somebody else think, okay, well, wow, okay, if he can talk about this, I can go and I can talk about this. I can get help. I can reach out. I'm not alone. Because the biggest part of it is you think that you're alone. Right. That's the thing. When you're going through a bad bout, you think there's nobody else in the world who can understand, nobody who can hear you. You're only sitting there in the darkness.
Did you get professional help?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There were a series of things. But even that can't always help.
Right.
But just, the main thing is being able to reach out.
Yes. In the Newsweek article, too, it mentioned that the last time you saw Robin Williams, he asked you for copies of the DVDs of your show.
Yeah, I have a couple of DVDs of Genuine and of The Waiting Period that are not available, commercially, just, archival things. And Robin had not seen the shows and had heard about them and asked me to send them to us. So I did, and to this day, I don't know if he ever saw them or not.
How were you impacted by his suicide?
Well, I'll tell you, I opened Waiting Period in 2012, and I did it for about 18 months. And I had to stop because, in order for me to make this real for the audience, I've got to go to that dark place as an actor.
Yes.
And I couldn't do it 7 times a week. It just started to suck me back in.
Yes.
And I need to let people know, too, that this is not a depressing play. That's the big thing about it, is it's just as funny as it is, serious, as much comedy as drama. It's a play about depression. It's not a depression play.
Right.
That's how we put it.
Because you have your comedic moments in it, and that's one of the things that's true about life too. Even in those moments of thinking with despair, there are also those moments of hope. And ultimately, it is about hope and help. Right. And there's a lot of laughter in the show.
So I did this. So I did the show for about 1.5 years, and then I had to stop. And I went on. I did two other plays after that. And then when Robin committed suicide, I was talking to my publicist down in Los Angeles, and my publicist was telling me that he'd represented Rock Hudson during the time that Rock Hudson came out
when he was diagnosed with AIDS.
That he had AIDS. And remember, prior to Rock Hudson, we didn't know about AIDS. It was those people.
Right.
And then when Rock Hudson came out, it's like, you know what? This is someone who's been coming into our homes for 20 years with Macmillan and Wife and other things. We've seen him in movies. It's somebody who we know, and it put a human face on it. And he said that maybe what Robin did will put that same kind of human face on depression. And I said, okay, let me see if I can help start this conversation. So I brought the play back for that reason, so that we, number one, to help people, so people can come out and talk about it. But number two, so we can start looking at depression as a disease. It's not it's not a character flaw.
Right.
Throughout history,
there's no shame in it.
Exactly.
It's a chemical imbalance in the brain that can be regulated, and so many things.
That's part of it. But
part of it, right? But that exactly what I'm saying is there's no shame. in it, and there are so many ways to get beyond that moment, that day, that incident
Exactly.
that feels hopeless. And so for the month of April, you have a GoFundMe because you want students to be able to see the play free of charge.
Well, actually, it's not just for the month of April. What
Okay.
the deal is, we started this program, the Marsh in San Francisco and I, back last year, with the idea being to raise enough money, $150,000, so that we can run the play for free for an entire year, from January all the way to December. So as of this point, we've raised about $60,000. The show's been running since January, absolutely free. And the main reason I wanted was because normally tickets are $30 to $100, and kids can't afford that. There's an epidemic of depression and suicide among young people.
Yes.
So what's really great, all the people who've reached out to help, Lucy Arnez gave us money because she was telling us about how she had her neighbor had committed suicide. Her best friend 20 years ago had committed suicide. Ed Asner reached out and gave us money. So it's touched so many people. Depression is something that touches all of us. So we've got the GoFundMe, and the idea is we will do the show free to the public, as long as we can. Till either we raise enough to do it for the year, or the money runs out, then we have to charge. But right now, it's looking like we're going to make that goal. I'm hoping that your viewers will help us out.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we hope you will. And Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
And please check out the play and talk with someone about it. Take a friend, and let's continue the conversation to open this up. And if you are in need, please reach out and ask for help. If you'd like to contact Brian Copeland or find more about the waiting period, details are on our screen. Mark Sackett is a producer, an entrepreneur, an incredible networker. He owns 13 companies. He lives in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York. But he also lives wherever the art of active networking is going on in a city near you. Mark is a visionary. We're excited to have him with us to talk about what he does and how we can connect better with each other to really help empower ourselves and our whole areas. You do the art of active networking in San Jose as well. We'll have dates on the screen for each upcoming one. But Mark, welcome. I've known you for years. I'm glad to have you on the show. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you always.
Yes. So let's talk about how this began, the thought behind the art of active networking, because it's different from other events where people go and they hand out a business card. Oh, what do you do? What do you do? You wanted something different because you said we deserve more and we need more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I hate networking events. So I decided.
So ironic.
Yeah, there is some irony in that. I decided that I wanted to create a networking event that was effective, that people loved, that they wanted to come to. Because, I think that when somebody says, oh, I've got a networking event, and people are like, oh, and they roll their eyes, and, they don't really want to do it. Or they know it's this thing that they feel like that they have to do, to build business and all this. And so I own a big event space in San Francisco, and we weren't really heavily rented on Monday night. And I said, why don't we make Monday night about having a different kind of a conversation? So over 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago now, I started it, and people showed up. 30 people showed up, and then 40 people showed up, and now we're almost headed to 14,000 people, and I've now done it in 13 cities and 5 countries. And I did a TED Talk, and
congratulations.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So, and people love it. In fact, we just did a survey, and 70% of all the respondents were like, I've been to this thing more than 10 times. Usually 65 to 70% of everybody who comes either becomes a regular or they come multiple times. Because it's not really about that question. Oh, so what's the first question people ask you? What do you do for a living? And it's like, I believe it to be a throwaway question.
And you have 4 questions that you have people ask.
Yes.
And we did some videotaping there in 2011 when it was starting. So,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
I know, going back to that, to take a look at a little bit of how the evening goes. This is a look from way back then.
Good evening, my name is Linda Eskridge, and I'm going to start with my passion, which are my children. And because of this, I quit the corporate world 3 years ago, and I started my own company as a virtual assistant. I had 25 plus years as an executive assistant, and I wanted to be home with them, and now I am a virtual product launch strategist who I help small businesses with their products they want to launch but have no idea who their competitors are, nonetheless know who their target markets are. So I go and help them with all the strategy, and when we get done...
That's awesome. Great job.
I get to help people every day with be the best marketers on earth.
And I'm lucky enough to work with a bunch of passionate people, and when we work with people, we decide what is their why. Why do they do what they do? And if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not good enough.
I'm here because I'm really a giver. I'll give pretty much until I have nothing left to give. And I'm passionate about enjoying life at the intersection of art, science, and of course love.
And I know that it's a hard paradigm. I know that it's a mind shift for you guys, for some of you, to change that attitude to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm not going to sell myself. I'm actually going to help the person to my left or my right. What a weird idea. What do I get out of that? I don't get anything out of that. You will get it if you try it.
I am currently a marketing consultant in the Bay Area, and my passions are toting my kids around to their sporting events on the weekends, and it keeps me young, and also starting up a health insurance business for individuals, self-employed and unemployed, and educating people on all the ins and outs of that tricky business.
My name is Bronwyn, and I have a holistic medical practice where I help people to become more alive.
Hi, my name is Ali Hussain. I do technology consulting for a living in the software as a service space. I have a couple of different passions that I'm willing to, work with anyone who's interested in, coming and hanging out.
I work for a big corporation, so I'm one of those that raise my hand for staying on a job. I love what I do. My company allows me to travel the world. But part of the downside about being on a job that's traveling all the time is I don't have a social life. And if you even need a coffee with someone, scrambling through my list, and you can never find someone to have a coffee.
What I'm passionate about is moving on with my life and creating an organization of prosperity and mutual respect. I'm here to learn, here to grow, learn from all of you guys, and hopefully turn into a better version of myself. Thanks.
But and that is pretty much what still happens in the way that there are 4 questions that are asked.
Yes.
And what are those 4 questions?
Yeah, because the format never changes. Okay. So it's kind of a half hour of networking the way people always would. Then we sit down in a big circle or around a big table, and people have to answer 4 questions in 30 seconds. So the questions are basically, who are you? What do you do for a living or want to be doing? And it's a 2-part question because people, for some reason, want to know what people do for a living. And I believe it to be a sorting methodology. Because if you say, well, I'm a TV host and a TV anchor and producer, and if I don't need that, I immediately start, while you're still talking, I look over your shoulder for my next conversation.
I see.
And I think that that's a waste of time, and I think that it's the wrong paradigm because I don't know who you know, I don't know what you can do for me, and most importantly, I don't know what you can do for my network. And so I think that's the biggest mistake that people make at a networking event. So the first question is, who are you? Then what do you do for a living or want to be doing? And that's also because 70% of all Americans, and I'm now finding that percentage to be high in the rest of the world, are not living their passionate purpose, and they're not doing what they want to do and what they love for a living.
Yes. And how did you wind up doing so many different things?
Well,
can we name all of them? Right?
Yeah, I mean, but I wanted to tell you the third question.
Okay.
The third question is, why are you here tonight? And that's very important. And then the final question is, what are you most passionate about in your life? And I think that those questions are defining for people. And I don't think that they spend enough time thinking about what that answer is for themselves. As for me, I started as a graphic designer. I'm still so passionate about being a creative graphic designer. Then it sort of led into art direction, and then commercial direction, television commercials and music videos and things like that. And then I had an opportunity to buy interest in a film studio when we were doing the branding for them. And I never really was one of those people that lived to direct or produce, but I realized I was already doing both. And then I went to town on our first film. It was a 31-day shoot, and I was on set every day, and I just learned the film process. And then now I've done 3 films, and I'm raising money for my 4th, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's like a weird hobby, I guess. I mean, I make money at it, and I do well at it, but I love living a creative life.
Yes, and that's what you're most passionate about.
Absolutely. I'm passionate about waking up in the morning and not knowing how my day is going to go or what is going to happen, and I've never had 2 days even close to being the same. And I love that. And and then I'll be finishing a meeting and I wander off in some alley and take Instagram pictures for 20 minutes and
You are the master connector, and you were taking them in our green room too, which is great.
Yeah, we did a bunch of selfies in the green room, and I took pictures as I was coming in. There was some graffiti on the side of the building. And I find things fascinating, and I'm writing a book about that right now called Curiosity Thrilled the Cat.
I love
and I'm
it.
halfway through
Thrilled
it.
the cat,
But
yes.
I want people to be inspired to live a creative life, to live a powerful life, and to live a life of giving. Because I believe that if we all were to band together and help each other to do better, we could raise up and really create a tipping point in the world and move people back to giving instead of taking all the time.
Yes, that's part of the vision. I should mention that in San Francisco, it is at the Box SF.
Yes.
And then in San Jose at the Corinthian.
At the Corinthian Grand Ballroom, a block from here, actually,
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So you also have My Give For, which is part of that vision of giving, and
Yes.
that's really something that you really just started recently.
I started my ex-wife and business partner, Gretchen, who you know.
Yeah, so sad
she
that-
passed away in July.
Yeah.
And Gretchen was probably the most giving, loving person I've ever met in my life. And so in October, I kind of got this idea that the art of active networking has always been about asking the question, how can I help you do better right now?
Yes.
And I decided that I wanted to honor her and I wanted to inspire more giving. So what I did is I created this thing called My Give For, and it's a hashtag My Give For. And I ask each and every person that I meet to consider giving 4 hours out of every week for the rest of their life to helping others. And then people say, well, that's a lot of time, and how can I do that? So I say, here's how you do it. And many people do it in the course of their day anyway. You do it,
Right.
I know a lot of people who do it, but I said, well, why don't I give you 4 specific ways to do it, and that'll make it easier for you. And you'll be more mindful of your giving. So the 4 ways are, will you give of your ideas and your talent, okay, to help other people do better? And I don't mean in a transactional way.
Right.
So will you help somebody to do better knowing that we all struggle with something, saying, hey, I see you're struggling with that. I have some experience in that area. Could I give you some advice? Could I give you a little help? Number 2, would you give of your time? Volunteer, rake a neighbor's leaves, help somebody move, carry someone's groceries. I don't care what it is, but volunteer your time in a non-transactional way, again. No money exchange, okay? Would you give a little bit of your money? Drop a quarter in someone's hat, buy somebody a Starbucks in line, donate to a crowdfunding campaign, support a nonprofit. And I'm not talking about tens of thousands of dollars. I'm talking about 25 cents, $5, $1, $3.50 for whatever a coffee costs these days. I don't know. I don't drink coffee.
Neither.
But the act of giving hard-earned money that you have spent your blood, sweat, and tears earning is important. And then finally, would you give of your network referrals? Okay, so everybody I know is on some form of social media. They have a little black book, they have a phone book, they have a Rolodex. So give those referrals to help other people to do better, knowing that we only do business. People who are really successful in business don't do business by flipping through and calling an ad on the yellow pages.
No.
It's know, like, and trust relationships.
Yes.
So if you know, like, and trust me, and I make that referral for someone, then that person's going to pick up the phone for the person that I'm referring.
That's very true.
Right?
And that's the way
So
we
why
work
do we have
together.
to bang our heads up against the door all the time trying to break the doors down? Let's use our know, like, and trust power, the power that we have within us, and use that power of giving in that way to help others do better. So that's what My Give For is.
Yes, it's wonderful. Mark, it's so wonderful to talk with you, and I'm going to ask you to come back next month. We'll continue the conversation. But for right now, if you'd like to participate in the art of active networking and My Give For, or to meet or to reach Mark Sackett, details are on our screen. And that's our show. I'm Janice Edwards. Thanks for all that you do to put your signature on our valley, and thank you for joining us. Please come see us again next time. We look forward to seeing you then.
This show is sponsored by Silicon Valley Community Foundation. Silicon Valley Community Foundation advances innovative philanthropic solutions to challenging problems. As the largest community foundation in the world, we engage donors and corporations from Silicon Valley, across the country, and around the globe to make our region and world better for all. Possibilities start here. Learn more at siliconvalleycf.org.